Michael Hosluck is an internationally renowned designer craftsman. Born and raised in rural Saskatchewan, he started his career as a traditional cabinet maker, but he soon began to explore the less functional side of his craft. Hosluck has been making mixed media vessels since the early 80s, and his work reflects the cutting edge of Saskatchewan craft.
There's a lot of distinction drawn between the field of art and craft. I've never drawn the distinction. I think I move in and out of it. Some days I'm a real craftsman. I'll make things so meticulously, and the main importance of the making is that I execute that to the highest degree of quality that I can. And then there's other days there where the execution of the technique is not a factor at all. It's the ideas that you have in your head and how you express them, and that you just let them pour out of you, and whatever comes out is what it is. A lot of my early work was mainly expressing the inherent qualities of materials. I'd look at the wood and it'd say, turn me this way, make me that way, and it had a lot of control over what I did. But it was very important. The objects came out with some life, some substance to them. Whereas that same material now, I'll take and manipulate to what my ideas are. Sometimes I will start with preconceived ideas, and I'll go in there and I'll know that I want to make a cone shape. And maybe that's all I need to start me with. Start the whole series of what I'm going to work on is one idea, one shape. And from there, it's just a matter of growing, experimenting, playing with new ideas. It's sort of like you jump off the edge and you see what happens when you're falling down almost, what you can pick up along the way. The fun part of all this is I like taking a lot of risks in what I do. And to take that raw piece of wood, try a new idea by routering out those windows and little holes in it, not really knowing what's going to happen when you put it on the lathe and you remove that material, what kind of patterning you're going to get from it. And how when you take the little sticks after that you cut out and poke them through, not really knowing how they're going to react to the cone you made. Craft has a lot to do with man's ingenuity, his attitude towards what he's making and why he's making. And for a lot of people, it's for how far can I push my technical expertise, and what can I really outperform what has ever been done in history before. I think that's a real challenge for a lot of people. For me, it's not so much technical anymore. Once I overcame technique, then I was able to express a lot of what ideas I had in my head. That's where the craft part of it really means something to me, is when you start doing things out of personal expression. No one else can reproduce what's in your head. If you get this object and you put something of yourself into it, it can never be reproduced because we all think differently. What I like about the lathe is the immediacy of it. You take a rough, misshapen form or a piece of wood that is all gnarled and doesn't seem to have any beauty in it, and you put it on that machine and you pick up the tool, and within an hour or two you can create a whole different feeling to that object. My focus has been seeing how far I can really push the limits of interpretation of the field that I'm working in. I've introduced a lot of new materials to the field, like when I put a steel table into a wood turning show. It's made me realize that any material can be used now for expression of ideas that you have. It's not how you make it, it's why we make things. The materials that I use for wood turning are predominantly what I find in Saskatoon or surrounding areas. I think it's real important to pay attention to what materials are around us and how we use them, and that we use them wisely. With wood, a lot of the trees are being used up rapidly. And it's not only in the rainforest, it's right here in my own backyard. In Saskatchewan, trees are being used up at a rate that they aren't being replenished. So it's really time that we stopped and took a look at that situation. The legs that I made for this piece was from the designs on trees, the birch bark, the little slashes that go around. I didn't say to myself, I'm going to make these legs to look like birch trees. It came after. And I guess that's just stopping, taking notice of just everything around you. In making this object, it was really a challenge because you're combining a lot of elements. You've got 3 different shapes: a stick shape, a cone shape, and a tall structural shape that supports it. And then you combine those, and then you got to pull the elements of color in. And that's probably been a real hard part for me. It requires a great deal of thought, great deal of risk. You may go through the whole making process and you finish the object and you don't like it. Maybe not everyone will see it, but if you can reach someone with the objects that you make, you can bring laughter, humor. You created a reaction. It's no longer just, oh, that's a nice object. It sits there. People come up to it and they may smile, and I think that's important. They know that that was made with your hands and that it cannot be reproduced by any machine anywhere. That what you are getting is a very personal part of that maker.
I make things because I have no choice but to make things. It's a necessary thing for me to do.
Marigold Cribb is a vessel and basket maker who lives and works on a rural acreage outside Saskatoon. Born in Scotland, she comes from a formal art background and worked in a variety of media for over 20 years. Cribb has been independently studying basketry since the mid-70s, and her work is both an innovative exploration of hand weaving and a celebration of nature.
One of the nice things about making vessels using natural materials is the seasonal quality, the rhythm of the seasons. I like only being able to use certain materials at certain times. When you cut willow, all you do is encourage the willow to grow even more. Every time you'd cut a branch, there would be 3 the next year where that was. So it's very nice to know that I can walk about and make on my own land a multitude of different kinds of things without doing any damage to anything. And now I've learned how to use everything that's there. It took years to know how to bend or twist or, deal with wood. Wood is what I like best, any kind of wood. When I first began basketry, it was a question of mastery over the materials, so I made traditional things. And then I became more ambitious in wanting to be more creative with it. I don't think you can be creative until you don't need to have to think too much about how to do it. I've changed careers a lot of times when I was young. I started as an engineer, and then I became an applied mathematician. I always liked problem solving. The thrill of the solution is exactly the same. The light dawns in mathematics or engineering as it is in craft or art or any of these things. The actual material is part of the relationship of the work to the viewer. I don't dematerialize my work at all. I want you to react to the material. A few years ago, I discovered that I could make paper with leaves and old paper. I originally pursued handmade paper in conjunction with willow. I made skins over a willow skeleton, and I used it as a surface for its beauty and its aesthetic qualities, really. I think craft is good for me to make in that I don't have any tension about it. I used to try and work with more conventional art materials, and I looked at them strictly in line, design, formalist type of thing. And I never really knew when I had succeeded in my own mind. I never knew when to stop. So although I was satisfying my creative urges, I was not satisfied ever with the work. I moved into more conceptual art, where I made pieces that interrelated with the viewer in a direct way. They had to respond. And I found that more satisfying in that my task was to make the viewer respond. And therefore, if I saw the viewer responding, great, I'd made a successful piece of work. I've always liked building things with paper, but I used to use purchased paper. It didn't have any of this sensuous quality of handmade paper. There's an ambiguity in the edge. There's thickness and thinness. You could control your material. You can't buy paper that way at all. I believe that if I open all the possible channels to the world, that's my responsibility to do that. And then make what I need to make or want to make and judge it just by my own satisfaction. Then I hope that there'll be a response from somebody. Sometimes the thing I make will fit in with some general values about craft. Sometimes it's probably too personal. In some countries, children are taught from very young about aesthetics in everyday objects, and they just grow up with a sense of what's good design and what's useful design. And so I feel that people should be allowed and guided in being creative right through school years, and then they would have more security in their ability to choose things to make their life more rich. But we simply don't have it as part of our culture. And so I think it's important for the craft community to teach. When I'm making something, I want to be satisfied with the finished piece. But I must also recognize when what I saw in my mind's eye is not what is in front of me. Then I can look at it again. But I don't generally change what I wanted to say. It's just that I didn't say it the first time. I don't mind if you don't get my message, as long as I think I've said it, because somebody else will relate it to something in their culture and their experience and respond to it. I think that as people get older, and as the general population is getting older, it's more and more important for us to acquire creative skills when we're young, and to be able to use them all our lives and have them when we're old. I'm not going to care whether anybody likes my work when I'm old, but I'm still going to be doing it. So in any kind of situation where a human being is striving to do something is a good thing. And that just happens to be my one.